And now, to a reminder of our top story. The Somali government has approved a major deal with Turkey to boost security and economic cooperation. Well, under this deal, Turkey will train Somali naval forces and deploy its own ships in Somali waters. Now, the idea is to enhance Somalia's maritime security. The deal comes after Ethiopia signed an agreement with the self-declared Republic of Somaliland. Under the 10-year agreement, Turkey will build Somalia's navy and train its officers. There's also an economic dimension to the agreement with Ankara. Turkey is investing heavily in a seaport in Mogadishu. Somalia's Prime Minister Hamza Abdi Bare has hailed the agreement and says that it will help Somalia prevent terrorism, piracy, and illegal fishing. Turkey is a key player in Somalia, one of several states vying for influence in a country that lies on the shores of the Indian Ocean and the Gulf of Aden. And as always, we value your feedback to the stories that we have on the program, and of course any story ideas as well. You can get in touch with me and some of the team with your thoughts on social media. I'm at Wahiga Mwaura on X. Also check out at BBC Africa as well for stories. But that's all from the program. From me, Wahiga Mwaura, and the rest of the Focus on Africa team, we'll see you tomorrow. Goodbye.
Live from London, this is The World Today with Maryam Moshiri. The Gazans killed as Israeli special forces rescued 2 hostages 10 days ago. We have a special report. The Middle East and the war in Ukraine dominate the agenda as G20 foreign ministers meet in Brazil. We'll take you there live. One of the UK's richest men, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, reveals to the BBC his plans for one of the world's richest football clubs as he inks a deal to co-own Man United.
You know, you do have to pinch yourself really, because it is a sort of a boyhood dream, but they never come true normally, do they? This is the exception to the rule, and it's a nice one for me.
Also coming up on The World Today.
Throw your keys up, stick around, round, 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 round.
As Beyoncé tops the country music charts, her father tells the BBC it's always been in her blood. Hello, welcome to The World Today with me, Maryam Moshiri. We're reporting from Jerusalem, Rafah, Rio, Kiev and here in London, where the time has just gone 6 p.m. We begin though with the war in Gaza. Israel is now into its 4th month of military operations since the Hamas attacks on October the 7th. There's also this hour, we're expecting the British Parliament to vote on calls for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire. These are live pictures of the debate that's been continuing throughout the afternoon in the House of Commons. Meanwhile, the Israeli Parliament earlier voted to back Prime Minister Netanyahu's declaration opposing the unilateral creation of a Palestinian state. His Likud party says 99 out of 120 members voted to support the declaration passed earlier this week by the Israeli cabinet. It comes amid growing international pressure to revive efforts to reach a 2-state solution to the decades-long conflict. Interesting. Ione, thank you very much indeed. Ione Wells live for us there in Rio. Still to come on The World Today. An embarrassing episode for the UK after a test firing of a British missile designed to carry nuclear warheads fails for the 2nd time in a row. And Russian jail chiefs face sanctions after the death of opposition leader Alexei Navalny. Around the world and across the UK, this is The World Today on BBC News. You're live with me, Maryam Moshiri, on The World Today. For the second time in a row, a test firing of a Trident missile from a Royal Navy submarine has failed. It was supposed to have flown several thousand miles before landing harmlessly in the Atlantic between Brazil and West Africa. Well, instead, the missile dropped into the ocean off Florida, quite close to where it was actually launched. The Ministry of Defence insists the deterrent is still effective. Here's our defence correspondent, Jonathan Beale.
With his cancer treatment.
Daniel Orell, thank you very much indeed for that. I'm back with more news on The World Today with Maryam Moshiri in a few minutes' time. Stay with us on the BBC. This is The World Today with Maryam Moshiri on BBC News. The headlines. The Israeli parliament votes to support Prime Minister Netanyahu's declaration opposing the unilateral creation of a Palestinian state. A large number of Russian troops are believed killed in an apparent Ukrainian strike on a Russian army training site in the occupied Donetsk region.
Throw your keys up, stick around, round, 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 round.
And Beyoncé becomes the first black woman to top the US Billboard Hot Country chart with her latest song, Texas Hold'em. Well, let's start with the latest from Ukraine, where at least 60 Russian troops have been killed after a training area in the occupied eastern region was hit by 2 missiles. Sources have told the BBC that the troops have been gathered for the arrival of a senior commander. It comes just days before this week's second anniversary of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Take a look at this map. It shows Ukrainian territory before the invasion, where Crimea in red had been annexed by Russia, and parts of eastern Ukraine in yellow were under the control of Russian separatist groups. We'll fast forward to today and we can see Russia's advancement in the east, including the recent capture of the Avdiivka after some of the fiercest fighting of the war. Well, neither country releases their total death tolls, but there have been heavy losses on both sides. Well, let's cross live now to our chief international correspondent, Lise Doucette, who joins us live from Kyiv this evening. And Lise, tell us more about the deaths of these Russian soldiers in this training ground. OK, Daniel, thank you very much indeed for taking the time to speak to us here on The World Today.
Thank you.
Let's take you live now to the House of Commons. This is the scene now in the House. We've heard in the last minute or so that the SNP and Conservative MPs have walked out of the Commons chamber in an apparent protest over the Speaker's handling of this Gaza ceasefire debate. And now a big row has erupted over amendments to a motion which was initially put forward by the Scottish National Party calling for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. The government, after amendments were accepted from the Labour Party by the Speaker, said it will play no further part in a vote on the Labour Party amendment to the motion. So, it's been described in the last few minutes as complete and utter chaos. To bring a little bit of sense to the chaos, let's cross live now to Peter Saul. That's quite a big thing to ask of you, Peter, but I'm sure you are going to rise to the challenge. What is happening?
Yeah,
Explain.
it is utter.
Peter, thanks for that. Stay with us as we just remind viewers that you are live on BBC News watching The World Today with Maryam Moshiri. We are bringing you the live scene from the House of Commons. A huge row has erupted in the Commons over amendments to a motion put forward by the Scottish National Party calling for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. Now, MPs were supposed to be voting on a Labour Party amendment after hours of debate in Parliament. The debate was, as one would expect, passionate, given the subject matter, given we are talking about a ceasefire in Gaza. But things changed. The temperature went up considerably not too long ago, and there was absolute chaos when shortly after 6:30, the SNP and Tory MPs walked out of the chamber in protest at the behaviour of the Speaker Lindsay Hoyle. The government saying it will play no part in a vote on the Labour amendment to the motion which calls for an immediate ceasefire. They were protesting at the Speaker's handling of this debate. MPs have expressed anger after Lindsay Hoyle chose both the government and the Labour Party's amendments, breaking with convention. I think we can just have a listen in to what's happening now, because there looks like a bit of action within the chamber. Let's have a listen.
Sorry. Yeah, fine.
Peter Saul, our political correspondent, it's been an absolute marathon for you over the last hour or so. Thanks for giving us all the very latest and explaining what's happening so clearly. We are now looking at live pictures of an empty chambers. Deputy Speaker Rosie Winterton has told MPs they are moving on to a different issue now, and the Gaza debate has closed, with MPs not voting on the SNP motion. We'll bring you more on this story after the break here on The World Today with Maryam Moshiri.
The UK.
This is The World Today with Maryam Moshiri from BBC News. The headlines. Chaos in the House of Commons as MPs vote on a motion for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire in Gaza. The Israeli parliament votes to support Prime Minister Netanyahu's declaration opposing the unilateral creation of a Palestinian state. A large number of Russian troops are believed killed in an apparent Ukrainian strike on a Russian army training site in the occupied Donetsk region. We start with a special report on the number of Palestinian casualties in Gaza when Israeli special forces rescued 2 hostages held by Hamas on February the 12th. There was relief for the families of the pair, 70-year-old Luis Har and Fernando Marman, who's 60, and a boost to national morale. But the raid in Rafah to free them reportedly left more than 70 people dead and dozens more wounded. The BBC's special correspondent Fergal Keane has been hearing the testimony of civilians and medics caught up in a night of fear. Hisham Mana from the Red Cross, it's good to talk to you. I really appreciate you taking the time to speak to us on The World Today on BBC News.
Thank you.
Well, let's bring you more on that breaking news story coming to us from Parliament. In the last few hours, we've heard the Speaker of the House of Commons apologising to MPs following a very chaotic debate over the Gaza ceasefire votes. There were extraordinary scenes in the Commons as SNP and Tory MPs walked out of the chamber in protest after complaints about how Lindsay Hoyle, the Speaker, had handled the debate on this motion for a ceasefire in Gaza. SNP and Tory MPs said they were angry after Mr Hoyle chose both the government and Labour Party amendments to the motion, breaking with what is known as convention. Well, let's now cross live to Westminster and speak to our political correspondent, Peter Saul, who is there for us. And Peter, absolutely incredible evening at the House of Commons. Talk me through what's happened and indeed what happens next. Okay, Sharon, that's absolutely incredible and so interesting, the way that you do this and the way that you guys do this with all these videos and pictures that you see. Sharon, thank you very much indeed for joining us. You're watching The World Today with Maryam Moshiri on BBC News. Stay with us. Now, a couple who won a £61 million share of a Euro Millions jackpot have said at first they mistakenly thought they'd only won £2.60. Richard and Debbie Nuttall from Colne in Lancashire scooped the prize last month and found out while on holiday in Fuerteventura, celebrating their 30th anniversary. OK, Peter, thank you very much indeed. Well, it's been an incredible night. If you want to know more about what's happened in the House of Commons, Peter is back with my colleague Regini on The Context in just a few minutes' time here on BBC News. I hope you've enjoyed the first edition of The World Today with Maryam Moshiri. I certainly have. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
Hello there. There's just over a week to go before we can close out the month of